it was like, why is this person making much more than I am in the same job? And you can't help but like, it's a distraction now, right?
This podcast is brought to you by HeyTaco, the only peer-to-peer recognition platform that uses tacos to help teams around the world share gratitude. I'm Doug.
I'm Una.
This is our podcast, Amazing Teams. Lola Han, welcome to the Amazing Teams podcast.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Of course.
Lola, we're excited to have you. And for those who don't know Lola, Lola is the founder and CEO of Kamsa, a company that helps startups and companies of all ranges with data-driven compensation strategies. Lola has decades of experience with startups like Zendesk, heading their compensation strategy, and then helping a lot of different companies along the way figure out how to pay their people in a way that actually works for both. Lola, I'm excited to dive into the compensation topic. There's definitely tons to talk about. But my first question is, did I miss anything in the introduction? Obviously, you have a vast background, but anything else you would like to share that I did not mention?
Great summary. Yeah.
What do you think, Lola, in your experience and for what you've seen, takes to build an amazing team in one sentence?
In one sentence, empathy from the leader, great listener, and really focusing on cultivating your people.
Cultivate people is what your company was called before you renamed it, right?
Yes. And there was, intentionally named that way because I truly believe in cultivating your people, whether it's career growth, developing them. So it's like you want to create an environment where you're all having a great time. So I've been in a job where it's okay, now that you got promoted to director, we want you to be the senior director. Now you're senior director. Great. The reward for good work is more work, and we want you to be a VP of HR. And it's like, well, I don't really want to be in that role, right? I encourage leaders to really ask, what does that employee even want? Do they even want a promotion? Maybe they're happy in their IC4 level role. They don't want to be a manager. So,
Lola, can you tell us more about how Kamsa came to be from your experience running people ops previously?
yeah, so I spent time, as you mentioned, in head of compensation roles at companies like Zendesk. Company after company, I realized there are a lot of things that you have to do to establish good compensation structure and programs, like job leveling, like establishing career paths for employees, selecting a compensation philosophy. And a lot of that there was no automation around building that or building pay ranges, and it was so clunky. You're like Frankensteining raw market data into a spreadsheet, making sure the variances between the midpoints make sense. And company after company I was doing it all over again, and I'm like, there's got to be a better way. And looking at the market, there was no tool in the market at that time where it's a all one-stop shops compensation solution to help with all that, so developed it myself.
That's amazing. Now, do you only offer comp services? What are the types of services that you offer?
Our product Kamsa companies can access global market compensation data across over 2,000 jobs, right? So immediately with a subscription, they can gain access to that. But also by uploading their employees or integrating with an HRIS, they're also immediately able to see statistics, analytics, like how their employees pay compared to market, by department, how is it looking, by gender category, how is it looking, right? So in addition to that kind of product and technology, we believe in a human touch. So a lot of kind of products or tools out there, like you get access and then it's like, oh, good luck using our tool. But we believe in really being there for our customers to help them establish the compensation philosophy, maybe share trends we're seeing in the equity compensation side, executive comp, because the board is asking for any recommendations. We do it all basically and help with anything that comes up related to comp.
Gotcha. It sounds like you offer high touch. Is this simply through building relationships with your customers? Can you explain a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's really listening to our customers and getting their feedback, incorporating it into our product and services, but really going back to what I felt was painful in being in those people leader roles and what I wish I had more resources or help with, because you can't, as a people leader, there's so many things you have to juggle. all people leaders can't be expected to be compensation experts too, right? So it's like we help take that off their plate and really drive that and execute that.
Lola, you mentioned compensation philosophy. What does that even mean? How do you even talk to people about it? Because when I think about compensation, I think about, oh, you look as a recruiter at the data. Clearly, I'm not an expert, but what does compensation philosophy even mean? And what are the different types of philosophies companies can have around
Yes, great
compensation?
question. Funny story is when way back in the day, we actually started as a compensation consulting firm before the product. And initially, I would meet with CEOs and ask them, so what do you want your compensation philosophy to be? And you would just get deer in headlights. Like, I don't know, you tell me. Like, you're the consultant. And I realized over time they don't know, so you have to provide recommendations. But to simplify it, is it compensation philosophy is essentially deciding as a company if you want to meet the market or lead the market in pay for your employees, right? Then that means selecting a market percentile. So most of our clients select the market median to target for non-technical jobs or jobs that are less harder to find and recruit for talent in the market due to the skills you're looking for in those jobs. And then for technical jobs, targeting a higher market percentile, like either the 65th percentile or the 75th. And you just select the right market percentile to meet or lead the market by job family, essentially, or job category.
When you talk to customers or prospects, how many people actually have a philosophy before you start working with them?
I would say more than 50% don't have a philosophy. And the rest, if they do have a philosophy, they want to know, is this seem right? Is this what other similar companies are doing? And I would say more than 50% of the time it isn't, because it market is moving fast. For example, there's a customer who was targeting something like the 90th percentile for all employees. And it's like, well, maybe when the talent demand was much more before, you needed to target such a high percentile. But now that you have a cash restraint and budget constraint, maybe you want to be more fiscally responsible and target, I don't know, 75th for your technical jobs. And because you don't want to do something too drastic, shift it maybe 65th for your non-technical, right? It's like a phased approach, so it's not so drastic.
I'm curious, Lola, how much of a strategy involves thinking about the perks of a job?
Yeah, a lot of times the companies struggle to close candidates, right? Just from compensation, cash compensation, let's say, and even maybe cash and equity compensation. More and more companies, because of some maybe cash constraints they have, or even maybe pressures from the board on using too many shares. So they're more limited on how many shares or refresh grants or new hire grants they can give out. They are getting a little more creative, and I wouldn't say creative because it's always been this way, but maybe getting better at communicating the EVP or employee value proposition of the offering that this job will present and the company. So things like, you know what, you have huge growth opportunity here. Yes, you can go join the Facebooks, Netflix, Amazon, but you'll be a smaller fish in a bigger pond, right? Here, you'll be a bigger fish in a smaller pond. You'll learn so much more and be part of this, let's say, founding team, for example.
I'm gonna put you on the spot here. What's the most unusual or creative perk you've seen or heard of?
Uh, when I first moved to San Francisco and started working in the startup environment, I was really almost shocked at how much perks were offered, like food and snacks wise. I was in an office where every floor had a refrigerator with various kinds of milks: soy milk, oat milk, regular milk, 2% milk. And funny, an employee complained that the second floor didn't have oat milk anymore and was like, "You're discriminating against lactose intolerant people." I'm like, "Are you kidding me? There's bigger things to appreciate than just various kinds of milk." So I would say food and snacks.
Yeah. That reminds me where I used to work. We used to have a kitchen, and one day the kitchen had been replaced with healthy snacks, and everybody freaked out. It was kind of funny.
That was similar with there was like the what are those spicy Cheetos called, and they were no longer available, and somebody complained to the whatever the complaint box. We also had avocados every Thursday at one company, and they only put it on one floor or a couple of the 5 floors or something like that, and people were like rushing during that time to get the ripe avocado. So
And these are people living in the Bay Area making 90th percentile compensation in
yeah,
their.
buy your own avocados. Eat it at home.
What do you think? Okay, if you're a company listening to this and you might have still a physical office and you're thinking, do I have snacks? Do I not have snacks? Clearly, that's two zero and two binary of a decision. But why do people do it? And
Mhm.
how do you do it in a way that people don't feel like, well, this company is obviously not a trendsetter. They're outdated. They don't care about employees because people kind of associate a free avocado with care, which is not necessarily the same.
Yeah, the good news is dying trend, right? But yeah, back in the day, years ago, because other companies were doing it, there was pressure from people teams or office experience teams to have more and better snacks because they're talking to their friends about it. Like, oh my gosh, we have avocados, and then they have to one up them or at least meet that, you know.
I didn't clear this with Una, but let's see if this works. I want to play a little game. I've got 5 things I'm going to name. And Lola, I would just want a single word response from you, either cringe or binge.
Okay,
You ready for this?
let's do it.
All right. Pay transparency.
Binge. Yep.
Free llama rides at lunch.
Cringe.
Chief happiness officer.
A little cringe. Yeah.
Location based pay.
A binge. Yeah.
Game rooms.
Cringe.
Thank you for playing.
Oh, that was great, Doug. That was great. Cleared. Completely cleared.
That was inspired by our improv class the other day.
Nice.
Can we focus on the binge? You said the first binge was pay transparency. You and I, in prep for this podcast, talked about transparent comp.
Yes.
Is transparent comp the same as pay transparency?
Not, it depends on how it's defined, but there's obviously a spectrum of pay transparency. There's the one end where you keep visibility to pay bands very limited to, let's say, HR only, maybe finance, and even top executives or something like that. And then there's the other end of the spectrum where it's like the companies like Buffer, where they're publicly posting all the pay ranges for all the jobs that exist in their company. Short answer, if someone asked, where should I go be in that spectrum, is somewhere in the middle. Where I would start if you're new to it is the lower end of that spectrum. So you're sharing the compensation philosophy to top management first, then to the other layers of management, and then broadly. So it's sort of a phased approach. Along with the compensation philosophy you're sharing, where how are we establishing our pay bands? What market data are you using to establish them? When do employees get salary increases? When can I get promoted during the year? Those simple things that you communicate, all these questions from employees will go away, or a majority, 90% or more of the questions and disgruntled employees complaining about it will go away. It's all about communication.
When people are disgruntled about compensation, what do you think they're taking care of? Like, why are they disgruntled? And why does communicating more about how the comp works takes care of that?
Yes, sometimes it is because they're below market. Their pay is below market. Maybe they're asking their friends, they saw a band in social media or even like somewhere publicly sourced data, which I'm not a big fan of because it's less accurate, but they're looking on Glassdoor or something like that. Or nowadays, they're just looking at job postings for jobs similar to them. And you have to post your ranges in certain, if you're hiring in certain states. And even in the EU, it's going to be required effective June 2026 as far as more pay transparency. So I would say sometimes it is because they're legit below market, but other times they're looking at data and comparing their pay to that market. I have to say, though, a lot of the time, they're looking at the wrong level of data. So maybe they are called a senior software engineer at their company, but that title at their company aligns to, let's say, IC3 career level. they're looking online at an IC4 senior software engineer and comparing themselves to the wrong level.
I was reading somewhere that nowadays everyone is a senior content creator, senior manager, senior whatever. I saw someone that I know have a title of senior vice president at a bank. I'm like, we went to school together. Senior vice president of a bank seems different. And then I learned that at a bank, there's different permissions you have and authorizations you have because it's such a highly regulated industry, the fintech, that certain titles allow more freedom. So if you looked at PNC Bank of America, I think there's lots of senior vice president, associate vice president, whatever.
Yeah, I'm all about establishing market friendly titles as much as possible within an organization. Yes, there's going to be some customizations because you might have unique jobs within your company. But that way, you're also not creating a disservice for your employees, for example, because, for example, unfortunately, there have been a lot of layoffs in the last couple of years, right? And when those laid off employees go to the market to apply for a job, because let's say they were a business development director at their current company, they're looking at all these director of business developers online and not getting interview calls, right? And that may be because at your prior company, they just inflated your title. If a company is making sure that their career paths and the levels that align with it are more market friendly and more consistent across the org, like all the IC4 jobs in a company are senior, whatever, right? Then it really helps the company not only ensure they're paying accurately against market and assessing that within the company, but for the employee, they're not having to deal with.
That's really interesting to me. I feel like the inflated title thing is the result of somebody being at a company for a really long time. Is that what you see? I feel like if somebody's going to spend 10, 15, 20 years for a company, they need to feel like they're growing within that company. And I feel like maybe giving them those new titles and inflating those titles is usually the course.
Yeah, sometimes that's easier communication, right? Yes, sometimes it is because they're maybe an early employee and now they have this head of communications title, right? But really, when you level it, it's like an IC4 job, right? In that case, I'm always for not making the employees upset. It's maybe their outward facing title still, but internally, there's a kind of management business title, I usually call it, is imagine another column and you see the more market friendly title that aligns with it. That way, the people HR team are able to more accurately assess their pay against market.
The company I used to work for, we were allowed to create our own titles. Now, of course, we had our side of desk title, the top down title, but everyone came up with their own title. And I thought that was super creative. However, I think it makes it really difficult when you leave and to go find a new job. You can't really carry that made up title with you. And it's like a level set. You have to really figure out who you are in where you are in terms of your career.
Yeah. Yeah.
Doug, what was your made up title?
I knew you were going to ask that question, and it's been such a long time that I don't even remember. I think I was on the UX side of things, user experience, and I think I just called myself a UX developer.
Did a senior get in there eventually?
I never liked the idea of junior, senior. It just never really made sense to me. So yeah, no, never made it into my title.
I have a personal story, Lola, that's kind of stuck with me when you said how to achieve pay transparency and just communicating how are we paying, how do we think about compensation as a company? And then what does it take to get promoted? What is valued? I remember one time years ago in a job, I got a raise and I was excited for that evening. And the next day I came to work and I realized I have no idea why I got that raise. And I have no idea what it would take to get another raise. Not in terms of being greedy, but thinking about what does good look like so I can achieve the next level of compensation. And that lack of clarity as a person on the receiving end is really confusing. It's as if you're a basketball player and you're not on the court, but you have no idea what it would take to get on the court. That's a very frustrating situation to be in. So one thing that resonates about communicating is now I have an idea. Everyone in the company has an idea of what does good look like and how can I direct my efforts to get to wherever I want to go, whether it's more pay or a different department or more titles, whatever that is.
Yeah, absolutely. I've definitely seen in companies that we partner with employees that are top performers, let's say, and they might have gotten an increase and they actually got a higher increase than other performers, but then they're shopping around because to your point, they're like, well, how does that compare? How does my new salary still compare to other senior product designers in the market? And you're curious, you want to shop around. But let's say if your manager said, you know what, you did a great job, you did these specific things, giving true examples which had this impact to the company, and that's why I'm giving you a much higher percentage increase than other performers. That is more meaningful, right? And now you frankly were below market, but that's because we didn't have market data, good solid market data to assess. Now we do. And also we're giving you a market adjustment on top of that increase. You're now within the market, you know. So you could keep it that simple. You don't have to share even like what market percentile, what's your compa ratio, like it's just too much detail. You could keep it simple, and those talking points for managers is so important to even share with them so that they can be comfortable enough to communicate that to their employees.
Even just hearing your explanation feels right on the receiving end because you know
Mhm.
that the other person has thought it through. It's not just throwing it against the wall and hope it sticks,
Yeah.
right? It's like, no, we've thought it through. This is why, and this is what the market looks like. Now you feel more calm as the employee knowing that you're taken care of, right?
Yeah.
People have thought about your comp and how does that play into the factor.
Yeah. Yeah, and we've talked about this, earlier, but it's like, pay people fairly upfront so that they can focus on their job. Otherwise, they're going to get resentful, they're going to shop around. It's a distraction. Yeah.
Doug has a great principle here that I think ties exactly to what you're saying. Doug, can you talk more about how you think about paying people for their work, like contractors, service providers, even in your personal life?
Yeah.
I'm curious what Lola thinks about this.
Yeah, I'll just use a personal experience here. In my homestead, we have some renovations that we're doing at a house, and my wife's dealing with this, and she's trying to negotiate with the contractors. And I'm like, no, no, don't negotiate with the contractors, because if we're gonna get, if they want $2,000 for a job and you're trying to negotiate $1,500, well, we're gonna get $1,500 worth of work. And so my principle is, don't negotiate with the contractor. Now, if it's too high, maybe we go and find somebody else. If it's too low, we should probably question the job that they're going to do. Oh yeah, I don't like negotiating, especially around a quoted job.
Yeah, a similar story is I had a friend who was selling their home. And of course, the demand was huge, low inventory. They're getting all these offers. And there was one offer, but they were asking all these questions and like being difficult. And am I going to get this? And is there inspection this and that? And ultimately, they ended up going with the lower offering because there's like, I don't want to deal with this. I don't want to deal with all that. So it's like, yeah, there could be a little negotiation. You could say maybe like in the pay world, if you're an employee, I'm all about negotiating your pay, but also bring the data points. Hey, I'm seeing these data points for similar jobs at these companies at the same level. Could we probably meet in the middle of your offer and what I'm seeing? So
And then the hiring manager, recruiter can also do the same, right? And say, hey, actually, this is what we are saying. This is how our compensation philosophy works. This is what you can expect, right? It's sounds like it's such a healthy conversation
mhm.
versus playing games. And then you get into a workplace and then either of the sides is disappointed or, as you said, resentful and
Yeah.
whatnot.
Yeah, I do see a lot of companies also struggle with, let's say they're now paying their employees like a little below market, frankly, currently, but now they're trying to recruit for all these positions and they want to be fair and pay for them. But then they've got this dilemma, right? This problem of internally we're lower in market, newer employees are now more competitive in pay. How do we handle that? And it's like, don't shaft the early comers because of that. You pay them fairly, and then let's create a budget, even if it has to be over time, a phased approach to get the current employees more competitive over time. So
Yeah. Yeah. The market, the data's out there, right? And if somebody wants to be paid more than what the market is telling us, I'm going to have much higher expectations, right, in the quality in the job. I don't know if that's the right approach or not. And so rather than, for at least for me, rather than negotiating down to the market level, I'll pay somebody extra money just to satisfy them, because I think as soon as you start talking about negotiating and bringing that pay down, it changes the mindset of that person. And I don't know, that's just been my experience. Maybe I'm looking at this wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. I was at one company, frankly, and I had a peer that joined not long after I did. We're on the same team, same level, senior director. And when I came on board, of course, I'm responsible for comp. So I see everyone's comp. And honestly, mostly it's you don't take things personally. But it was like, why is this person making much more than I am in the same job? And you can't help but like, it's a distraction now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what do you think that, why was it? Like, why do you think they were making a lot more than you were in the same role? I'm just curious about the reasoning.
They had more probably experience with this one tool or software that they implemented, and their next main job at this company was to implement that same tool, and probably frankly a better pusher and negotiator. I'm also, Doug, to your point, like you don't want to negotiate to death, right? It just ruins a relationship. That person maybe was more aggressive.
I want to ask you about, what do compensation and appreciation have in common or not in common? So, for example, you just said the comp was a distraction,
Mhm.
right? Because you found out someone was making a lot more than you were doing almost the same job. Probably made you feel a bit less appreciated. I'm putting words in your mouth. So it might not be true, but sometimes it is for people. How does comp play into people feeling appreciated and recognized and valued for their work?
Yeah, it's the foundation to me. It's like it sets the foundation, but there's other layers to appreciation, like recognition. I highly believe in recognition, and a lot of it could be like even a lot of micro recognition. Not don't wait till the end of the year to be like, great, you're making it to President's Club for achieving your quota. It's every once in a while, oh, great deal that you made. That was like a tough one, but you closed that deal, right? To the sales rep, and it's trickled throughout the year. And that's just an example of another layer to compensation that falls under the appreciation umbrella.
It feels like being compensated well is a basic expectation. You want people to be compensated well where they feel valued and they're not constantly wondering, am I being screwed, for the lack of a better word, right? Because then the recognition actually means something. I'm trying to put some myself in those shoes. Like if I was feeling like I'm not making enough money, but then someone tells me, "Hey, great job," it feels dissonant, right? So
Mhm.
then pay me well if you think I'm doing a great job, right?
Yes, I've definitely had those exact words in my head in previous companies where even like for the reward for good work was just more work.
Mhm.
And initially I was like, oh, this is awesome. Like you're giving me more responsibility, and now I'm going to not only cover compensation, you're giving me benefits, and now I've got people ops and payroll. This is amazing. And then afterwards I'm like, this is not actually fair. I'm like, salary's the same, but yet now I have to oversee all these things. I'm here until 2 in the morning doing all this, right? At the end of the day, at that job, I had it at some point, and I said, you know what? I'm good. I'm leaving for this other job, and they're going to pay me this much more. And frankly, my boss freaked out. And well, initially she's okay, see you later. I think she was just in shock. And then 10 minutes later, she came back, or 5 minutes actually more. Okay, I was just in shock. I really need you. What do you want? And I said some uh, significantly a higher number of salary than even the other offer. I said, I need a new HRIS because everything's manual, and I need a compensation analyst because it's just me handling all these employees, thousands of employees comp. So she said, I'll be right back. Maybe 20 minutes later, after a conversation with the CEO upstairs and maybe even the CFO, came down and say, okay, done and done. Like, okay, well, why didn't you do that before? Right.
That's a great question. Okay, in software, when we think about HeyTaco or other tools, you know how sometimes you cancel a subscription and then third step down is, what about 30% off? I'm like, why didn't you offer that ahead of time? I thought you were offering me your best price available for the services you provide. And now you want 30% off just because I'm about to leave? No. So it feels like offer your best price always. It's the right thing to do, whether it's a salary, whether it's pricing your services or products, not just because I'm getting ready to leave. Now you're like, never mind, let's go lower. It just doesn't feel good.
Because most people are going to be like, no, like F you. Same with the counter offer. Maybe initially some people might take it because they're just like shiny object. Oh my goodness, such a high salary. But I guarantee on average, they won't last 6 months. It's usually 6 months or less. They'll be gone. So
That's awesome. I have a question. Let's say you are not the CEO and founder of your company, and you are working somewhere and you could design your own perfect compensation package. What would it include?
yes, we actually have that perfect design at Kamsa. Paying the percentile that majority of companies in a similar stage to us target as far as the cash. We are more aggressive on equity. So, for example, targeting the 75th percentile. Over time, as we grow, it'll have to notch down because typically, it just as you grow, you're more conservative with your shares. But yeah, just meeting the market initially, and then not honestly going too aggressive because you want to be able to be still a profitable company and fiscally responsible. But what we do at our company is we have a bonus program that works like a profit sharing. Then we're a profitable company. The net profit, we take the proceeds of that, and then it goes out bonuses to the team based on, for example, their contribution and performance.
Gotcha. I do want to mention, and I commented on your LinkedIn post earlier, I do want to congratulate you on being customer funded. That is such a huge thing and very special. So congrats on that.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
You're welcome.
I love the customer funded versus, yeah, self funded or bootstrapped wording.
Lola, how often do you review your compensation strategy and data, things like that?
So it's at least once a year, right? But for companies that, for example, still need to catch employees up to market, I highly recommend probably more often than that, at least every 6 months to see, if you have the budget, of course, doing those reviews more frequently. But we do it just because we pay fairly upfront. Once a year, we do a review. However, I'm not like so structured where it's like you have to wait until the end of the year. If an employee does something consistently, now that's the key word, consistently meets and not only meets but exceeds their expectation, let's say for a good longer period of time, not just, oh, thanks for working hard that weekend, but it's more consistent and longer term, then they could potentially get an increase or even like a bonus.
What are one or two things to someone that's listening? What are one or two things that you would tell, please just don't do that? Like the cringy of the cringiest. We're like, if you're going
Yeah.
to do two things, don't make sure they're not these.
Yes, please do not just share all the pay bands all at once to all managers immediately. Yeah. I'm about phased approach and good solid communication starting with the top, like executives, for example, and layer it because that gives the management opportunity to soak it in, ask any questions, make sure they're confident in being able to communicate to their employees or address any questions that their employees have.
Should we move on to gratitude, Una?
Dear gratitude. I feel like we can
Let's-
talk about this forever. This was so good.
yeah,
Like,
this is
tell me
great.
more. It's
Yeah.
just so interesting. Clearly, I'm not an expert in it, so it's just fun to hear, Lola, what all the things that you obviously have done and thought about. So I'm just fascinated by the depth of the expertise and the topic.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
can talk about compensation forever. And my parents still don't know what the fuck I do for a living. And I said, and it's like, oh, that sounds nice.
Lola, I read online that your parents had a coffee shop in DC.
Yes.
Do they still have it?
No, it's so they had it open for 20 years though, and then yeah, shut it down, retired. But I was that a tween age person in summer schools standing on top of those milk crates, those plastic milk crates, put it upside down, stand on it so I can reach their cash register. And back then the cash registers, I'm aging myself, but they won't calculate the change due. So I would do
Oh,
that all in my head. Like, thanks for the
It's
$20.
good practice.
Old school Kumon.
That's awesome.
I remember those times. All right, let's move on to gratitude. Some of our listeners might already know, but this podcast is brought to you by HeyTaco. And with HeyTaco, everyone has 5 tacos to give each day to show appreciation or to recognize someone for something they've done Lola, who are you giving your 5 tacos to? And they can be multiple people. It doesn't have to all go to one. Who are you giving them to and why?
Yeah. So if I get 5 a day, you know what I would do is like accumulate all the tacos to the end of the week and then make sure to give 2 good solid chunks of it to my top performers, my team members. So then it's more meaningful and you're not like peanut butter spreading, like you get a taco and you get a taco, right? It's like, nope, the 2, let's say the top performers of the week got their more significant amount of tacos.
Thank you for joining us on the podcast. Really appreciate learning from you and listening to you talk about compensation.
Yes, thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you, Lola. And Doug, taco for the cringe or binge
Okay.
set over there. That was pretty fun.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. One of the important things about building a team is gratitude. If you're looking to add more gratitude into your team, check out HeyTaco.com. We are clearly biased, but it really does work. Use the code AMAZINGTEAMS to receive 15% off for the first 3 months of your subscription.